jump in a minute to grab my tea.
Yeah. So Pluto in Aquarius is good for the prophetic tradition, I think.
So, do you have proof?
Do I have proof?
Because I feel like it should be. It makes sense that it should be,
Sure.
right? But I don't. I'm a geomancer. I look at little. I throw dice. I don't know history. That's for.
Yes, you
I mean,
throw
I do,
dice.
but not
Therefore, you are looking for the real truth.
Yeah.
Than those of us who merely look at the heavens.
Sure. Yeah, you guys did. Well, you guys know a lot of stuff. You just don't know what's going to happen.
Indeed. I was just talking to somebody recently at the job, and they were talking about it was a customer, and they were talking about how weathermen just lie all day.
Yeah.
And I was like, do you know that I'm a weatherman? But yeah, I mean, but you're not wrong. I don't feel like I lie, but I reserve the right to be wrong.
I have a buddy who is a weatherman. I think he ended up. We were best buds in high school. He took a kind of a fundamentalist Christian turn, so we just kind of lost touch. But he's a super sweet dude. Has like 4 kids, and I think he like dove into climate. Like weather climate predictions for insurance companies because he had some mouths to feed. You know what I mean? But his dream when he was a kid was to be a weatherman. And this was a guy who like nothing in school, didn't give 2 shits about school ever. Decided he wanted to be a weatherman. Found out that weather patterns had to do with statistics, and then just went left like a rocket. Like, dude learned everything about stats. Learned, he was talking about Bayesian analysis and shit. And I was like, that sounds weird. Go for it.
Yeah, word. I can relate. This is how I feel about economics. I've recently been reading up on economics and stuff, and I know enough to mention Keynesian economics and to sound tough at the cocktail party. What were you gonna say though?
I'm gonna spend money to make money. But when it comes back to it though, like he isn't really lying to people. He's just giving you his best guess, which is the same thing we're doing in this stuff too. It's exactly. Like, listen, if I bat 70%, aren't you happy I got 70%? You didn't know anything before.
If you're hitting 70%, you're hitting 100%.
Yeah, it's great. 70% of the time it works 100% of the time.
Yeah, well, what I mean by that is that like no one is batting 80%. No one's doing that.
No,
but this is not within the realm of human capacity at this point in time.
Yeah, it's not even on the picture. And like, listen, and the robots aren't there yet either. Like,
sure,
robots are a fucking mess when it comes to prediction right now. Like,
as yet, it's real rough.
I wonder if they'll ever really get better than that 80% marker too.
Sure.
Like so like in the day job, do some work with that kind of stuff. And they certainly do show you things you did not expect to see. Like that non-human intelligence thing is real. Right. But like my dog also shows me stuff I didn't anticipate because he sees the world differently. Right. So like, I don't know if most of their value is just really going to be on tracking different perspectives rather than like a deeper kind of prediction, right?
Sure. Yeah. I wonder sometimes about like pattern recognition and a machine's ability to recognize and then project patterns forward.
Right.
And then also accounting for shit happening. Shit that got through your filters for whatever reason, things that like anomalies to the pattern or like things that are the pattern happens the same way every time, but each time is a little bit different. And it's like all right, so I'll talk about Pluto and Aquarius, and I'll provide some of my evidence.
Before you do, I'm going to interrupt to grab my tea, which is exploding.
Oh, yeah. Go get your tea, for sure.
All right, my dude, educate me. Teach me in the ways of Pluto and Aquarius.
I mean, we'll see. We'll see what kind of lessons I got here. But did you see do you watch the astrology podcast with Chris Brennan?
I do. Yeah. The last one I picked up was the monthly for January though.
Yeah, well, that was the yearly, but the
I'm doing great.
yeah, right. So, but he and Nick Dagan-Best did a 4 hour intensive of Pluto and Aquarius through history, and it is extremely dense.
Yeah.
And I'm only like an hour and a half in or something like that, and already I need to go back and listen to this first hour and a half and another time.
I
But
I I rag on that podcast sometimes because I gotta listen to it at like double speed and stuff. But at the same time, they provide so much info. Like there
for sure,
really is just so much stuff in there.
it's so much. It's like Chris Brennan, love him or hate him, the man has done the work.
Totally.
He has
Yeah.
like no one else has this podcast. No one else has such an extremely and informative starting place
Yep.
for everyone. Like for free, for fucking free.
Oh
You
yeah. I
like
mean, I would say the vast majority of what I have learned about astrology has actually been through the podcast. Like that's been
fucking
my biggest
same.
teaching. Yeah. You
I'm
take
I'm a
classes occasionally.
professional astrologer, and like I mostly learned for free through,
Yeah.
uh, and at this point, like I took his Hellenistic astrology course
Right.
and found that it was the podcast. I was like, oh,
Right.
this is like all of this is here in the pod. The only thing that's different is example charts. There's a million example charts in
Yeah.
the course, but like for the most part, it's all the concepts are there in the podcast. You don't need to pay hundreds of dollars for that shit. All you need to do is put the time in. So many
Yeah.
hours, hours and
So
hours
many
of listening
hours.
to Chris Brennan drone on. But the fact is, the man is dropping gems on you the whole fucking time. It's
All the
amazing.
time. All the time. Yeah. And even when even the disagreements I have, or like when I'm like, oh, I don't see that doesn't make sense to me or whatever, so entirely fruitful. Do you know what I mean? Like, which I think
Sure,
is a good mark of someone I want to listen to, that if even if I don't agree, I have fruitful thinkings with whatever you just said. You know what I mean? And it
sure.
takes me in a direction that works for me, you know.
Yeah, it's not a podcast listening session for me if I haven't yelled at the radio a couple of
Exactly.
times. I've been like, "You fucking dolt! We are not looking at the thing,"
Yeah.
or whatever. So,
I, yeah. So wait. Well, like the what is your take after diving into
so
an hour and a
I
half?
don't necessarily have a take. I'm just gonna repeat some things real quick.
Okay.
So,
All right. We'll play with it.
because I mentioned that Pluto and Aquarius is good for the prophetic tradition.
Right.
So Chris in this episode, Chris goes back as far as he can go in Pluto and Aquarius periods. And these are 250-year increments or so,
Right.
240-ish. And so he goes back to like 680 BC, and which is a long way away.
Yeah.
And he evidently, in that time, that is when the longest running scientific or data science research project was begun, which is the astronomical diaries, which is
Right.
whole genealogies, whole lineages of people would look up every night and take note of what was happening in the sky, and then also take note of the like level of the river, and they
Yeah.
would take note of political events, and they would take note of grain harvests and these kinds of things. And they did this every night for like 700 years.
Right.
And this was begun under Pluto and Aquarius. Or
Interesting.
was it begun in that time? The oldest records that we have
Right.
come from that time.
Which has its own value, right? The idea that like even even if let's say there was some older Sumerian,
Mhm.
long-standing thing that was running, right? The current line that we can trace back to begins there, right?
Mhm.
And I saw this post not too long ago about how I'm going to mess it up because math is not my thing. But basically, like Sumerians had a different kind of trigonometry that they were using to
Mm.
solve various puzzles. And it's actually amazingly accurate, right? And what we have
Sure.
is the Greek tradition. But the Sumerian stuff was lost. Like, and it was better than
Mhm.
the Greeks at some things. It's worse in other scenarios. It was tailored to what they needed, you know.
Sure.
Um, and so we can't, there's some value in saying we can't say that continued. It doesn't mean we can't look back at it or bring some other touch points in, but like
Mhm.
when we're talking about a largely unbroken 700-year process that we can
Mhm.
track,
Mhm.
that's an impressive thing, right? Like, and the fact that that began in this period is by itself really interesting.
Yeah, super interesting. Impressive is not the word for a 700-year data science project. Like we don't have any analogs right now
No,
of like research projects that have gone on from the 1300s. Like this is an absurd period of time. And if we do have data science projects that have been going on, you know what they are? They're fucking astrology is what they
they
are.
are astrology. Yeah, yeah, it's astrology. I was trying to think what else could be similar, right? Because that is the time period, the 14th century. You start to see like accounting. Do you know what I mean? Like not fully,
Mm-hmm.
not
Sure,
full
sure.
modern accounting until Pacioli gets into it. Um,
But this is so that's a field of study, but
right.
not a single data science project, which
Well,
is we're
the
gonna
only thing I was wondering was banks at that time. Like once we get into the banks, do they do this? Right? Is there like a Medici bank that has
oh sure
records that are about, but even then, it's
records
not,
that go
again, like
back
you
700
say,
years.
it's not a correlated, pure study thing. It's not doing that level setting and what happens when I see the moon here. Let me look back. Oh, every 600 years, the moon's in this position. Yes, the river goes up. You know,
Hmm.
like that's
Yeah,
not the same thing at all.
yeah. Well, it was an organized event. It was an organized experiment where
Right.
people were like, "Okay, so we think that there's something going on here, and so we're gonna look into it, and we're just gonna write the shit down until we figure it out." And that happened for 700 fucking years. At that point in time, like 100 years is like 5 generations.
Right.
So
Right.
we're talking about like we're
It's
talking about
cathedral
a period
building.
of time that is completely inconceivable to for a single project to go on. Anyway, don't catch me flexing on the science bros like this. Astrology isn't real. Hashtag astrology isn't real. So um all right, so there was that, right? So the
Right.
longest running data science project ever in human history begins at this time, and that in itself is good for the prophetic tradition. We
Sure.
move forward one Pluto in Aquarius period around 240 years, and then we see the development of natal astrology. So up to that point,
Interesting.
we've seen omens that have
Right.
mostly had to do with the empire or and the king and the like land, the country, the
Yeah.
nation state, right?
Yeah.
And so at this point in history, that's when again, who knows how long it had actually been happening, but the records that we have, the oldest records that we have come from this second Pluto and Aquarius period. And it's of course not the second Pluto and Aquarius period, just the second
In this
oldest one
cycle.
that
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
have records of.
Yeah. I What's the third one? Because I have a question, but I like to have three data points. You know what I mean? I like to triangulate
Mm-hmm.
in the field. So what's the third piece?
Sure. So after that, then they develop the what we think of now as horoscopic astrology, the fourfold system of planet signs, houses, and aspects. So
Mm-hmm.
up to this point, what we're talking about in at least the Mesopotamian tradition is those first two Pluto and Aquarius periods. That is going to be looking at sign or planets and the signs that they are in, planets
Right.
relative to the backdrop of fixed stars. Then at this point, we get in this third period that we're mentioning here, we get the inclusion of the hour marker as well. So
Right.
where they are relative to the land mass as well, or relative to the horizon. And so then
Right.
that gives us 12 houses, that gives us rising signs and stuff like this. So the time of day comes into the picture in this next Pluto and Aquarius period.
When does the move to the tropical zodiac as the solve for precession? You know what I mean? Like when does that
Mm,
happen?
that's a good question. And I don't know. Like I said, I'm only an hour and a half into
Yeah,
this episode.
yeah. I'm letting the touch
I'm
back in
three
for
Pluto
Chris.
and Aquarius periods into this episode right now. So that's how far I've made it. But at this point, so in this point in history, we're talking about like 60 CE or so,
Hmm.
at
Hmm.
which point the tropical and sidereal zodiacs would have been close to the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there wouldn't have been a need to
Right.
work out precession at that point.
Yeah. It's somewhere in the next 500 years that
Yeah,
they start being like, there's a drift.
right, exactly. Yeah,
By the
at
way,
60
nothing.
CE, it's still like the spring equinox is happening at 0 Aries or close.
If I remember right, there has been a realization that the deckhands have shifted
Mm,
because Egypt is so long, right? And so like there's some
right.
understanding that that has swapped, and they were starting to have. I don't think they had fully gotten into the full procession conversation yet at that, you know what I mean? But I think that that's part
Mm.
of like, I know they were, I got to look at the notes again, but that's happening somewhere in this time period. The piece that was, do you think there's anything about Pluto and Aquarius that is particularly connected to uh record keeping, right? Like, or writing
Right.
down, or prophetic tradition that is written, you know?
Yes.
Okay,
So
cool.
shout out to Chris Brennan who mentioned that the development of paper also
Mm.
shows up during Pluto and Aquarius. And I think we haven't gotten there in history, but I think the printing press is going to show up under Pluto and Aquarius
Ooh.
also. And what we one of the themes or patterns that he mentioned several times is that there's a kind of, he calls it a democratization of emergent technology. So it's this idea of like new technology coming out, and it's Pluto, right? So you want it to be a
Right,
secret. The tech is so good that you can't let the
right.
other guys have it. And this is true about astrologies. Astrology in 600 BC is jealously guarded. They're like,
Yeah.
yo, we've got something that the other guys don't have, and that gives us a competitive advantage. We're gonna kill those motherfuckers. And so they're and but then once we get one time forward, then it's not just, then enough people have begun to study the craft that it's not only imperial astrologers anymore. And so we start to see it being used for people's nativities as well. And then
Mm.
from there, we get more and more of it taking place. And there's what is that lady's name? The lady Egyptian astrologer, lady mathematician.
Oh,
You know the one.
Hypatia.
Heliodora.
Never mind. We're talking about different. I like that we both pulled out different Greco-Egyptian uh, female mathematical philosopher, astronomer, or astrologers. That's good. I'm glad we're doing this.
Yeah, truly, truly. Yeah. Heliodora predates Hypatia by like 400 years or something like
Okay.
that. And then stands as the first lady astrologer on record. Um, but so what was I talking about? What was I gonna say about Heliodora?
Paper. We were talking about the creation of paper. The
Yeah.
going back
Hmm. I don't know.
procession. Oh, you're talking about democratization of technology and everybody's
Yeah.
so people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So I wanted to bring women into the picture here because now we're not talking about kings and empires and dudes who want to take over land and fuck up the
Right.
other dudes, but
Right.
we start getting into the land of like natal astrology for more domestic concerns, right? For
Sure.
everyday. And so when we get into this democratization idea, then it's like this sense of like it's for everyone in some kind
Hmm.
of important way. And so then we get into, so that is the pattern of Pluto and Aquarius. And so and it's so, as we see the development of paper, and paper that lasts longer than something like papyrus, for example,
Right. Right.
or that is easier to use and construct than a stone tablet is, for example,
Or vellum.
and is
Yeah.
lighter to carry around and this kind of thing. So it becomes possible for intellectual traditions to meet all of the rest of the people,
Right.
or at least the people who have the capacity to figure out what these scribbles on the scrap of paper
Right.
are.
But I mean, it's a
Which
big
it takes a
deal.
long time for that to become widespread. But
Sure. Wait, have I told you my favorite story about reading in your head?
I think you did,
Anyway,
but
yeah,
tell it for the
I'll tell
people.
you. This is about Saint Augustine and Saint Jerome, and apparently, according to the version I read, Saint Jerome, when he read, he had to like still talk aloud, right, which was common. But Augustine had figured out reading quietly to himself, and Jerome just like thought this was complete madness. Like he just could not. It wasn't quite like that's witchcraft, but he's just like completely blown away by the fact that Augustine's just over there like not reciting out loud. And like I love this thing about Augustine sitting there and just quietly talking to Jerome's like, when are you gonna start reading? Like I asked you to read this. Like when are you gonna read this? And he's like, I'm reading it. He's like, no, you're not. You know what I mean? Like that kind of like, but it's such a hinge point where like it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't too long after that that everybody was reading could read silently, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so
And it changes the
it's
game.
yeah, and it's these tipping points between um, you know, as you say, a more widespread understanding of a certain thing that up until that point had been secret, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, is really interesting to see it start to pop out. Um,
Yeah. So
and
once
how
we move into the future, then UFOs. What were you gonna say?
I was, I was UFOs. No, I was thinking about how prophecy goes along with that though. So like
Mm-hmm.
one of the I don't know if it's a Pluto and Aquarius period, but one of the interesting periods to me is the English Civil War period. And part of it is because there was no government and there were easy printing presses. And so people just printed whatever they want. Like, and that's one reason we
Mm-hmm.
have so many grimoires and so many cool astrology texts. And some of the geomancy texts get printed out like at that time period too, because everybody's just like, there's no law. Like, you can't throw, there's no witchcraft law. Throw me, I'll just print it. But you also
Sure.
see the development of a ton of apocalyptic prophecy, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of like different splinter groups off of Christianity get going because, like the Quakers, their Mother Shipton can actually have her prophecies published and you can read it. She's not confined to yelling on a corner someplace anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there's also this like paper has this great way of being easy to pass, easy to hide, easy to move
Mm-hmm.
around.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of can't stop it. And I've been obsessed with the idea for years that like a lot of us are really paper magicians. Like that gold is not our medium, really.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't make a lot of talismans out of gold. If I'm going to make something quick, it's going to be out of paper for sure.
Sure.
And then, but then I do my thinking that way too. I write spells out. I do, we do this sort of stuff
Mm-hmm.
through this spirit partnership with trees that is paper, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
just struck by that. Like I was actually talking to Marissa Gambaruti, has a good Substack. You should check her out. About some angel magic stuff. We were looking at the D tables, right, from the Heptarchy Mystica. Like, and it's like, you got to have beeswax and you got to do this and you got to do that. And reading it, I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's only like this because D thought it had to be like this,
Mm-hmm.
right? That if you came to him and you're like, I don't know, man, just pray a bunch and put something down on a piece of paper, he'd be like, that's not magic. You know, I need a
Sure.
gold ring with a signet and I need a table of practice and I need all this stuff. And then the angels are like, all right, well, if you need one of those, this is how you would build it.
Sure. Sure.
And there's something about that's a move to want to contain it. That's a move towards special knowledge that stays with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas
Mm-hmm.
paper is like, yeah, I'll just hand it to my buddy, see what he thinks about this crazy angel shit I wrote down with my other friend and who told us to swap
Mm-hmm.
wives and shit. And the other guy's like, this is crazy. But like the prophecy traditions I know best are interactions with written accounts. Like they have the experience,
Mm-hmm.
right? But they write
Mm-hmm.
them. Like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, you know, I was there a different kind of prophecy from the book of Daniel before it was written down? Like, I don't know. I only have this, right?
Sure.
It exists in the tension between the written and the reported experience.
Mm,
And so, yeah, so I was just curious too to see like if Pluto Aquarius is good for prophecy, is it good for writing? And like what kind of prophecy? Because prophecy
sure.
has that component too of like not just prediction, but truth telling, right?
Yeah,
Like,
and I don't really feel like prophecy as future telling or forecasting is actually what prophecy is. I think it's
right.
more in the truth telling camp. I think it's
Yes.
more about like saying saying truth to power in some kind of way, um or like if they're prophesying about things falling apart, then it's usually because of some kind of like political bullshit that's going down, and the
Right.
prophet's like, if you keep this shit up, it's gonna fall apart, you
Right.
guys, like, stop please. And I understand that I look crazy,
Right.
and I don't give a shit about that because you still need to stop.
What do you mean we can't keep drinking and making our laws when we drink? How could that ever go wrong? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So prophecy is I think so. And all right. So then if we think
mm,
about prophecy as telling truth to power and coming into the breakup of empire, you hold on to that thought. Don't forget that thought, sir, while
I've
I
got it.
make mine.
It's locked.
So I so if we think about Pluto in Aquarius, not only is this Pluto in Aquarius, and but it's also the beginning of an air period,
Hmm.
in the
Hmm.
era of
Yeah.
air. So we've
Right.
got these 200-year periods where we've got Saturn Jupiter conjunctions that are going to be in one triplicity or another. We're
Right.
coming out of the Earth one, moving into the air one. We just had the first air conjunction in Aquarius in what was that, 2021, I think, early 20,
Yeah.
no, or
Somewhere
was
in
it
there.
late 2020, something like this. I think it was
Yeah.
December 2020 now that I think about it. Um, and so now we're in this air era, and air eras are very good for breaking up empires, very good
That's
for
true.
scattering the mode of power, right? Going from Earth, which is very solid, very top down, or not even necessarily top down, but like very hierarchically built, and
Right.
then going from that kind of structure to what if just we went where the wind blew instead. And so if we're in a period here where Pluto is in Aquarius, an air sign, it happens that this is an air sign as well,
Right.
right?
Right.
And then
Double
we're
airing
in a
up.
moment where it's time to break up empires. This seems like it's going to be real good for prophecy. It's going to be real good for prophets, for crazy motherfuckers to come out and be like, "Hey, if you keep doing this, it's going to break." And then
Right. And then
it breaks.
it's gonna break. Yeah. It struck me that we're your framing there reminded me of the great prophecy of our times, Avatar: The Last Airbender, which predicts
True indeed. True
that
indeed.
an air avatar will come
Sure.
and take away the empires, both the Earth Kingdom and the Fire Nation, just tear them up
You
and
make good
restore the
points
true
here.
balance.
Right.
So I just need to go sit with the Prophet Aang a little bit and see what he has to say about whatever's
Sure.
coming my way. But I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's something that does happen in these periods too. I think the whatever we want to call spirit world, other world, fairy, whatever, it starts to like push in, like this stuff pushes in on
Mm.
people's imaginations, and artists and prophets and things begin popping up because they're like, hey, we should be paying attention to this. This is what's happening.
So this is interesting here. So, because I think it's really uh new. It's so once you start to push on the idea of like what even am an idea, and like you get into this place where like people don't have ideas, ideas have people, and this
Right.
kind of thing,
Right.
then it becomes very, oh, I don't know, plausible that aliens came and told you how to build pyramids or
Sure.
something like this, right? Like, and if you don't necessarily think that little green men landed in a spaceship and like and gave them on not paper a some kind of plans or something, like that's not what
Yeah,
happened.
exactly.
What happened was some people probably got really high, or they were or deeply asleep or in some kind of trance or had been chanting or something like this, you know what I mean? And got some ideas that they didn't
Right.
have before that. We don't know where these ideas came from. It is unlikely that they came from inside of themselves. And so they got some outside ideas somehow, and then took those ideas and made some, and that those ideas are in fact technology. And so
Yes.
when we talk about innovation and technological advancement, then that really is, like what is your iPhone except alien technology, right?
Right. And
And an
by the way,
entity into itself.
I've
Say again?
always enjoyed wrecking people's dinners with Gordon's starships with this stuff. Do you know
Totally.
what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
It's
Yeah,
just
that's
really
exactly what I'm
fun.
talking about.
It's just
Right.
really fun to fucking destroy people with that stuff for a while. Um, but one of the things that gets me about this, I got thinking with the pyramids one day, and there's all these different ideas about what they were for, right?
Sure.
Like, pyramids are for spaceships, pyramids are for healing, pyramids are sound things or whatever. They're tombs, they're
Right,
not
right.
tombs, whatever the shit is. But what got me about it, what got me most excited about it is the idea that pyramids are for the creation of Egypt.
Oh.
That they are a technology that in order to make them, the dream of them real, you need all the things that made Egypt great to work. You're
Sure.
going to need a
Mm-hmm.
unified system of belief. You're going to need people compelled to come and work for this. You're going to need a view of the afterlife that makes this worthwhile. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
need a guy that you're going to soul bind at the top to guard Egypt forever. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
and the thing is, if you don't have the pyramids, Egypt is built differently. Like the dream of Egypt becomes something else,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I'm really taken with the idea that there are technologies that we receive, these sort of dream moments that in the creation there the tech it gives you is the creation of something else. Like so Egypt is the thing. Yeah.
I am almost harmed by the brain breaking moment that just happened to me. So you and I have for a little while we've been talking about the nature of desire and causation.
Right.
Um, and we've been talking about how very strange and slippery that is.
Yeah.
And in part, maybe the listener would want to know that because we've been having these conversations and it's been crazy for us, that's why we just decided to start recording them. So
Yeah.
that we'll just have some record and you get to listen to. But so we've been thinking about that and thinking about desire and causation. And so what I thought of here and how squirrely and weird desire and causation are, right?
Right.
Don't really know how they function or don't know what they are exactly. And you don't necessarily get to pick your desires, right? But you just kind of want them and are motivated to move toward them and away from the things
Right.
that you don't desire, right? So this made me think about aliens sort of like as um bullfighters.
Ooh. Okay. Yeah.
So it's like you really want to fuck up this flag, don't you? You really, really want this, and then you get the bull to charge toward the flag, and then
Right.
the flag is not the point if you're the
No.
alien, or if
No.
you're the one playing, if you're the fighter, you're the one who's like
Yeah.
aware of this bigger show that's going on and like
Right.
this wider situation that's happening, and but it's your job to make the bull move from over there to over here. How are you going to do that? Well, you really want to fuck up this flag, don't you? So
Right.
come here and fuck this flag up because I know that's what you want. So if you're an alien and you wanted to create Egypt, then you give them something to work for.
Right.
You give them a flag to run at.
Yep.
It's
And
not
the
even
flags.
about this, but
No. It's just
but what we
and by the time you get there, you're like, well, this civilization is pretty fucking great. I don't even remember what these pyramids were for. Do you guys remember? No. you know.
right.
And I the thing about it is that there's a lot like that in teaching generally, right? Like
Yeah.
we
Hmm.
teach people this way a lot. We teach dogs this way a lot. It's
Yeah.
kind of like
Because it's the
for
only effective method.
it's the only thing that works. You can't be like, wait, I'm trying to remember now. Were we talking about the constant lies people have to tell in order to get infrastructure built? Did we get into that?
I don't think so. I don't think that was
Okay,
me.
all right. So this is a funny one. So like man, sometimes like we travel in some pretty nerdy circles, but every now and again
Yeah.
I'll confess to something that's like super nerdy. I listened to a whole podcast on the Big Dig, the tunnel system that they built in Boston.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. The look you're giving me is appropriate. That's exactly that's where they. But in it, they talk about this phenomenon that's studied that you can't actually get local governments to agree to the expenditure that building a public good will be. Right? It's always
Mhm.
way
Mhm.
more expensive than they're
Sure.
willing to pay for. So it's common to pitch them low, get halfway through the project, and be like, it's halfway built. We're going to need another $5 billion to finish this thing. And everybody at that point is like, well, I've been looking forward to it. And also, there's
Uh-huh.
half of a thing built in my city. I guess we
Yeah,
should
sunk
finish it.
cost and all this.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And, but that, like, literally, people have tried pitching it honestly and
Yeah.
being like, this is going to be, it's a $10 billion project. Everybody's like, I don't want it. But if you're like, it's a $1 billion project, and then by the end, it even costs 14, they're like, aren't we proud? This is such a great thing. You know what I mean? And it's the
Sure. Sure.
same, trickster concept that's at play
Hmm.
here
Hmm.
of showing the flag to the bull.
Sure. Sure. And kind of like you don't know what you want, so I'm
No,
gonna I'm gonna make this anyway. I'm gonna I'm gonna make this and make you feel like it's your idea.
this is also teaching children to do anything.
This is the only way to do it. This is the
Yeah,
only way to do things. This is like, like you can't just tell someone what to be interested in
no,
or what to like pay attention to. That's just not how it works. So if you're interested of your own volition, then you can become great. You can learn about Bayesian, whatever your friend learned about. I don't remember anymore.
Bayesian analysis.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. It shows you what I spend my time doing.
I would like it would be way better if it was Blasian. That would be his life probably would have been better if it was more focused on that. Oh, no, he's doing great. I don't mean to speak bad about Rob. He's doing great.
Word. So Brian, what if magic were real?
It'd be nice to actually use it from time to time. That's what I think about. What if magic was real? We should actually probably use it for things. Um, yeah. So we got talking about this. This is your idea. This is your pitch. On like
That's true.
what is this? So you should get full credit. But the idea of like um, both of us, in addition to being, you know, um, we are both to some degree uh, professional fortune tellers, right? And and I do some of that in my day job. I do it also for readings. You do the same thing.
Where can the people
And
get a reading? If I wanted to get a geomancy reading, where would I go?
oh, you can go check out my website at wilkinsbryan.com. But we can
Woo!
put it in the show notes.
WilkinsBryan.com. Ooh,
And
I love
also,
it.
by the way, if you're looking for Astro, I'll be hiring Zamboni next month for my yearly. So get in there before I take all the slots. That's the
ZamboniFunk.com. You know what it is out here
there we go.
in these fortune telling streets.
But the thing of it is that encountering a lot of cases where people come with problems or we're dealing with problems, and you get to hit to this moment of like you get caught up in the current reality structure. You get caught up in the way that people look at things around you, and you start analyzing from that position before stopping to ask, what if magic were real? Like, what if I could do something magical here? And half the time people are halfway through trying to fix something before they even sit down to think, I should throw cards. I should actually do some sigils. I should do a prayer. I should do this, because we're just so indoctrinated to not think that way. Um, and I like, I suspect you do, since this was your idea, the idea of taking some similar problems and like approaching them from the what if magic were real point of view, right? Like, so how do we look at these things? Um, if
Yeah,
magic
it's
were
an
real, which
interesting
it is.
thought experiment, I find.
Yeah.
You know,
What would you
it,
do
it's
differently?
yeah, what would you do differently? And like, that's what we w're doing with the pyramids and this kind of thing. It's
Right.
like, okay, well maybe this is alien technology and maybe and that kind of thing, right? Like if magic is real, then it's possible that it is alien technology. And so if it's alien technology, then what does that mean? And then also, maybe this has some implications for if I wanted to build a civilization
Right.
or do something in which I needed the bull to move, then how can I make the bull move in a way that makes it the bull's idea? Because the aliens have proven that stupid motherfuckers are not gonna move if you if you just tell them to. That's not how this works. So
I
you
like the
gotta
idea because I like thinking with aliens and angels being basically the same thing most of the time.
sure,
And I like the idea of like the first angels trying to give revelations to people, just showing up like regular dudes because they're like, I don't want to spook them. You know what I mean? I'm gonna
sure,
show up and just be like, hey man, flood's coming. Everybody's like, fuck off. He's like, all right,
right?
you know what?
Yeah,
I'm gonna appear as a bunch of terrifying eyeballs and burning pentagrams, and now I'm gonna tell him that it's doing. He's like, oh God, okay, yeah, yeah.
for
It's the
sure.
same message, just couldn't hear it.
Right,
Um,
right.
the I like your matador metaphor because I think it also is instructive in a bit if you want to play the matador, if you want to be that person,
Mm-hmm.
you gotta follow some rules or you're gonna get gored. Like the
Mm-hmm.
bull will kill the matador.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
and also you're moving it, yes, for fame and for performance and this kind of stuff, but in some sense, it's derived from the idea of like, what if I have to deal with this animal that will kill you? I mean, bulls, you enter the bull's space, it wants to kill you. There's no question about it. It doesn't. That is its current desire, is to stomp you into paste
Mm-hmm.
and then feel great about it for the rest of the day. So it's stronger than us. It's faster than us.
Mm-hmm.
It's more committed to killing us in every single way. How do we make it move without dying? You
Mm-hmm.
know, um, one of my
Yeah,
I'm
and
actually
you want to harness that bull's speed and
right.
drive all the things that like it's faster and stronger than you are. So there's obvious benefit if you can get it to do the thing that you want it to do.
One of my favorite dudes of all time is JP Mooney, who's probably the greatest bull rider of all time. And I put a reference to him in the book, actually. Like the Angel Michael in there is actually based on Mooney.
Mm. Mm.
Um, but he came through at a time. He was a real cowboy. Like he smoked. He's just a little thin dude. He just smoked. Like people would ask him about his training. His training was standing on a basketball for like 6 hours a day, and then like roping bulls and riding horses, right? And he came in an era where everybody's trying to like make the sport. So they're all like doing steroids and working out and stuff and trying to like, ride these bulls. He did none of it. He's over there just like chain smoking cigarettes and then just devastating these bulls, right? And just riding
Uh,
them. And always chose the most terrifying animal in the list. They'd be like, this is the one who kills people. He's like, that's the one I want every single time, right?
mm.
And they asked him something, and they asked him why it didn't work out, and he said, "You can't outmuscle the bull." And I'm just like, this dude just dropped the deep. Like, you're right. You're never gonna win that way. You're never gonna like
Sure.
work out enough until you're strong enough to deal with the bull, you know.
Right. Right.
But you can get your fucking balance on point, right?
Sure. Sure.
Which is what he was doing. And so I think that's another part of like what if magic is real is like the matador can't fight the bull head
Mm.
on, but he will
Mhm.
kill the bull
Mm.
if he wears him out with dancing, you know.
Uh-huh.
And so I think that's another thing with magic. Like we often come to the point of like, here's my problem. I want to brute force it. And I think that's
Mhm.
almost always the wrong idea with magic. It's almost never the right idea to just like let me just head to head clash with whatever I'm facing. Magic is
Mhm.
a daggers in the dark sort of art. It's a step to the side kind of problem.
Oblique.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and you should also wear fancy tight pants. That's also the other. That's the other
Whenever
thing that
possible.
that's
We
what the
should
matadors have taught us.
cosplay during our magic praxis.
I mean,
Absolutely. 100%.
I think
If you go to
what
zambonifong.com/about, you will see what I'm talking about.
that's true. You can peacock. You peacock pretty good. Yeah.
I peacock with the
Hello.
best of them.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I I look great in a pointy wizard hat. I don't make the rules. I just just follow them, you know.
So we didn't pre-talk about this next bit at all, so we'll see where it goes. But so what is something recently you have had to magic? Like what's a bull you wanted to move, or what's something you've had to deal with?
Hmm.
And what did you think about with it?
Interesting, interesting. Well, I mean, it's been mostly money magic recently.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and as is always the case, I feel like
Yeah.
that's the primary use of magic,
It
getting
was gonna
laid.
be my example too, is money magic stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's all money magic all the time. As long as we live in this market
Yeah.
where money is the only thing that matters, which is a problem.
Yes.
And maybe it's the wrong way to live and whatever, but like we fucking live here, so there it's where we live. And so so it's been largely sort of money and also um it's glamour, I would say,
Mm.
like
Hmm.
because glamour is where I get my money.
Right. Right.
So I want people to see me and think that I'm gorgeous and charming and have good things to say, and so that they'll want to hear me say the things.
It's working well. That's how I feel.
So far,
That's
so
what I
good, you
think.
know.
Yeah, yeah, it's working on me.
Love it.
It's an interesting. So I like glamour actually as a topic in a way here, because
Mm,
this is a really interesting question, because there are limitations to, if I accept the standard commercialized American body standards, right, which have
mhm.
become even wilder over the last 10 to 15 years with, for men, with, steroid use and, all this stuff coming out.
Really want to talk to you about that at some point. I don't know if we're going to get to it today, but I want to talk about gays here, right, at some point. Um,
Like, what? Wait, how did you spell that?
ZE. But I, as soon as I said it, I was like, gays are going to come up
Gays
in
are going to
this
come up too, because
conversation.
that's where the gays goes, is with the gays.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. You already know where I want to go with this. This is why I love talking to you, because you're 2 steps ahead of me. It takes me too long to formulate these sentences because you already know. Anyway, where was you
um,
going?
but yeah, but like, so, short of taking a shit ton of exogenous testosterone, which
Hmm.
even then is not necessarily going to change my bone structure and things in a way that I want, I am not going to be a model, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and this is not a woe is me. I feel very beautiful and comfortable in my beauty. I have no problem with that.
Love it.
But if I wish to glamour myself, the
Mm.
the brute force path is plastic surgery, right? It's
Sure.
expensive. It changes things permanently, has a real heavy cost, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so that's the brute force path. So then it's like, okay, well, what if magic is real? What do I really want out of my glamour? And you said something just now. You said you wanted people to find you, or maybe you said think of you as
Hmm.
charming, beautiful, these kind of
Hmm.
things.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
So the thing that's changing
I
there,
have to be charming. I have to be thought of as charming. It's different.
right, thought of as, right, it is the other people's perception that has to be shifted. You don't
Hmm.
have to shift you have to shift their perception.
Hmm. Hmm.
So what is something you do? Now we're going to talk about giving away Zamboni beauty secrets. I feel like you should have a separate
Jules.
course on this. What's something you do though? Because you've done waiting tables, which I've also done.
Sure.
Like, how do you shift somebody's view of you? Do you know what I mean? How do you change their perception uh, for this purpose?
Sure. Well, I don't know that I shift people's perspectives on me as much as and so like in a waiting tables environment, I get the first impression, so I
Sure.
can just channel it immediately. And so, and if I honestly, if I get off to a bad start, then this table kind of sucks. It's just
Yeah,
like,
that's true. Yeah, yeah.
and just like trip over everything and then just like wait an hour until they leave.
Right.
So I don't know that I do a lot of shifting. Um, so I will tell you, um, a secret that they don't know at the restaurant, but that anyone at home can use. Buy a Sphere and Sundry product and
I,
apply it to your skin.
this is actually very good. Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
It's so good and easy. Like she did all that work. She worked
Yeah.
so goddamn hard. Have you seen some of these ceremonies?
It's
Like,
true. Yeah.
this is why this
Actually,
is her whole job. She doesn't do
yeah.
anything else except pray and like cook for gods.
It's a good point. And this is actually a deep point that I think people don't think about. I mean, probably our crew, knows Sphere and Sundry stuff, but like the idea of like you should pay somebody to
Sure.
give you who's really good at this, you should pay them and
Mm-hmm.
take what they're making and use it. Like again,
Yeah, the
what if
jobbing
magic is
sorcerer.
real, right? I'm gonna put on quick, what's the Quicksilver one, the
Yeah.
tongue one.
Uh
Which I can literally use at the moment because I can't, I can't. I'm
huh.
stumbling over
Sure.
everything. I didn't apply it before this. Um, but yeah, like why would you sit and let that not be a part of your arsenal when it's right there
Yeah,
and
it's right
affordable?
there. It's very yeah. Like $70 really isn't that much for like every day you just use one drop and then just put it on there and then everyone loves you all day. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'll be honest. This is not necessary. It's kind of a blend between business stuff and glamour, but I use High John all the time.
Mm.
Like I am anointing this almost every day before I work.
Mm-hmm.
And during almost every single Zoom call I have, I am working this High John.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk to it, ask for help, do all this sort of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Treat it has a place of honor in my house.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a bit of like tech handed to me by somebody who had used it for a long time, and they were like, "Hey, use this in the calls. It'll help you out." And I started doing it, and you would be amazed how many times I'm saying something, and all of a sudden people just start nodding their heads. You know what I mean? They're like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. We're gonna go with Brian's plan.
Love that.
Which is a part of my glamour in that space is to come across as authoritative, is to come
Sure.
across as helpful, and like the person who has the right idea. And if you got somebody else who's constantly cutting into you the whole time,
Mm-hmm.
you have to fight that battle. And anytime you have to fight a battle, you lose power. You don't look as
Mm-hmm.
powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So if that person doesn't jump in because the High John's helping me win, then it just
Yeah.
multiplies. It's a multiplicative effect.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff like this that
Yeah.
is like totally possible and doable. This is Frederick Douglass, and Frederick
Right.
Douglass literally uses High John, and as a way to get himself free from slavery. He doesn't even believe it. That's the other thing. He doesn't think it's going to work. But he's got this friend Sandy Jenkins who is an African. So Sandy Jenkins is from Africa and is like, so he's fresh off the boat. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
He has been captured and sold into slavery. This is different from Frederick Douglass, who was born into slavery, right? So
Right.
Sandy Jenkins is from Africa and retains some of the old ways. That's what Frederick Douglass says about him. He retains some of the old ways, and then so he gives him a High John root and tells him to put it in his right pocket and just like
Right.
carry it on your right side. And Frederick Douglass is like, "Listen, man, I follow Jesus." And Sandy's like, "Look, if it doesn't, it does you no harm. Just
Right.
put it in your right pocket and see what happens." And then he doesn't get beaten by a slave master ever again in his life. It's crazy.
And you know, it's interesting too because what does those spared beatings get him? You know what I mean? Like, what kind of space is he able to maintain? What kind of strength can he build if he's not always recovering from these horrifying
Totally.
beatings? You know what I mean? Like, I think that's another facet of the sort of oblique steps of magic. I think a lot of times people are like, well, he didn't get free, you
Yes,
know.
he did.
Oh, eventually, yeah, but I mean, like, not the next day. He didn't walk out. There wasn't a miracle. Do you know what I mean? Like he,
Sure.
right? And you're like, yeah, but he got a +1 on all his I'm moving directly towards freedom rolls. You know what I mean? Like everything gets the capacity to get to the point where he can get, you know what I mean? This is all built out of this moment.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes people are like, if the magic doesn't immediately, there's not a flash of light and you don't have $1 million sitting in your room, it wasn't really
Right.
magic. And you're like, that presumes a lack of relationality with an entire system. Again, weather patterns, right?
Sure.
You're asking for the hurricane, for the tornado to hit your house exactly when
Mm-hmm.
you want it to every time, instead of, planning for the storm and moving
Mm.
around it.
That's a really good metaphor. But
It's not.
also, these
No one wants a
angels,
tornado to hit their house.
right. Well, but the weather patterns analogy, like the
Right.
cloud, the whole cloud system has to
Yeah.
happen, and so it's not just going to hit your house. That's a really good way of thinking about it.
Right.
Also, though, these angels be on some bullshit because they don't understand time.
They
They
do
don't
not.
know
They do
where
not.
you like. I live in a human body, dog. I got 90 years at best. 90 years is the very most that I'm getting out of this. And you are out here. I don't know what kind of timeline y'all been here since the beginning of time or some shit like this. And I
Yeah.
don't even know how long that is because I think that time is not as old as the universe is. It's like, but you know what I mean? Like this, miss me with some of this. I would like
Right.
to be able to pay my rent on the
Right.
first, please, sir.
It's a really interesting relationship, and like every good angel magician I know, like so everyone who has messed with these dudes who sit down, like they're a little. I do not fully think that the demons and the angels are all that different. Do you know what I mean? Like I think there's a sort of like spirit thing that's happening, and we encounter them in different ways, and But I will say there does seem to be a consistent thread of like the more sublunar, more the more hanging around spirits, they kind of get us a little better. The
Sure.
angels are just like wild, just wild shit, and you got to be really careful. They just don't like you say, they just don't work in the same time frames. They don't understand the same things. You got to really kind of work with them, which is here's the next thing. You you kind of gotta throw the flag for the angels. Like this is the thing I think that's weird about humans. Like aliens definitely
Oh,
throw the
sure.
flag for us, but we throw the flag for them a
Uh-huh.
lot.
Uh-huh.
And if you want to get what you want from angels, you're gonna have to figure out how to dance that dance.
Sure.
You know,
This is the robofish, right?
yes, sure, yeah. Gordon's
Like,
Robofish is a great one.
yeah, it's the idea of like if you can get a whole a whole group of fish
Right,
will follow a fake fish that's darting. If a
right,
fake fish darts, then everybody will be like, "Oh, it's something over there," and we'll dart toward it, right?
right.
And so that's you're throwing the flag for
That's I was trying to imagine just doing like a ninja smoke bomb, but for angels. You know what I mean? Like, look over there, and then you're running off. I was trying to think what you would want a bunch of angels to go over there for. Like it's sort of like breaking into the temple. Like, what are you trying to pull off? Yeah, no,
Yeah,
but
well,
that's exactly
this
it.
is kind of the thing, right? Like trying to figure out what your strategy is. Okay, okay. So I have rent that I need to pay on the
Right,
first,
right,
but I know angels don't have any idea what the first is.
right. No,
So we gotta we gotta say this in a way that they can understand, and it's gonna make it happen this week.
right, and that is encouraging them to act. So this is the other thing too that
Mhm.
like I think particularly magicians can get in a mode where they're like, well, I did the ritual and I did the thing, so now I'm gonna get it. And you're like, no, not necessarily. You're working with spirits. You're working, you know what I mean? Like they have lives and personalities and things that they want too. And like,
Mhm.
if you're not doing the spirit diplomacy right, it doesn't come through the right way, or something doesn't work exactly the way you want, or they decide to teach you a lesson because they're in a mood. Like
Sure.
you know. So you have to try to figure out what they're after and kind of work what their desires are. Like, what is angelic desire? Which is,
Hmm.
sometimes they're like, put a bottle of whiskey in this particular place. And you're like, okay, I can do that. Sometimes they're like, how about your firstborn son? You're like, no, that's no angel. That's not a fair deal. Like you gotta say no a couple times, but you got to figure out why, because then the question is, well, why did they ask for that?
Sure.
What's behind
Why
the
does Saint
asking of
Joe
that?
so badly want to be buried upside down in the yard? What is this dude's
So
deal?
So that's an interesting one, actually. So this is my UPG, which I love. I say it proudly. I don't think he wants to be. So my relationship with St. Joseph started, well, it's older than this, but my relationship with a particular statue of St. Joseph started when I found it randomly in my yard in Syracuse. And the people I bought the house from were an Italian family, and I'm reasonably certain they buried St. Joseph in the garden to get the house to sell. But they lost money on the sale.
Huh.
Now it worked really fast because they had a situation where they needed to suddenly get out of the house fast.
Hmm.
And it worked. We showed up, everything else, but we found a bunch of stuff that wasn't right about the house, and they finally were just like, oh, rather than fix it, we'll just cut a bunch of money out. And the
Hmm.
guy was actually mad. He came back to get his stuff a couple of times and would like try to intimidate me a little bit and try to tell me how we'd screwed him out of money and this kind of stuff. When I pulled St. Joseph out of the garden, the first thing that came out of my mouth was, "You didn't want to be in there, did you?"
Hmm.
And when I sat with him, he was like, "This is a dumb way to work with me.
Hmm.
I want to work with people. I'm a saint. I want to
Sure.
help out. Why are you burying me upside down to compel me to do things? Yeah, I'll
Hmm.
do it, but in the fastest way to get you out of my hair as possible, right?
Hmm.
What if instead you just worked with me? What if instead?" So I started anointing the statue with oil, talking to it, everything else. And in my case, mostly about job stuff, which is another one of his traditional, helping areas. And he came through
Hmm.
big time for me. I mean, to this point that I'm actually a devotee, right? Like,
Hmm.
so I don't know if anybody asked him if he wanted to be buried under. Do you know what I mean?
Where'd it
Like,
come from, you think? Do you know?
I think it's one of those force the saint to do the thing sort of things. I think probably in the original tradition it was get me my house in this time period, and then if it doesn't happen, I'm going to bury you upside
Oh,
down.
sure.
You know what I mean? And
Huh.
then over time, it just became when you want this, you bury him upside down.
Huh.
That's my
Okay.
guess. But we'll have to talk to some Italian witches to find out why they do that.
Yeah, right, right.
Yeah,
And the oral tradition is famously squirrely. Doesn't uh oral histories
yeah,
are not always necessarily accurate according to facts, whatever you think facts are.
yeah. And then also we get off on a thing too, where like, but maybe that's just how my desires and Saint Joseph's desires line up best, right? We work
Sure.
well as buddies. My middle name is Joseph. You know what I mean? Like my grandfather's
Hmm.
name is Joseph. His grandfather's name is Joseph. Like there's a Joseph going back as far as we know. So
Sure.
like maybe he's like, you don't get to throw me upside down and stuff. You're like you're my
Sure.
nephew. Like
Yeah. Huh.
I'm gonna send you on tasks and you're gonna donate to my hospital. Um,
Okay.
you know,
Sure.
which actually was where Wyatt was born. My son was born, was at St. Joseph's in Syracuse. So
Oh, okay.
it's, you know what I mean? Like it starts to be a
Sure.
whole thing. And like the guy who helped me have a healthy child doesn't, I don't bury that dude, you know?
Yeah, sure, sure.
Right. But I do
All this
donate to
time
his
I thought it
hospital.
was what he wanted.
Right.
I thought this was a compliance thing. It was like, oh,
Although I
this
think,
this guy wants to be upside down in the lawn. I guess that's what we're doing.
which is,
I don't make the
so
rules over here.
that's a really interesting one. So there's no reason not to think that, right? Everybody says that you want this to happen. This is what you do.
Yeah,
But I wonder how many times we could stop and ask, just like, whoa, hey, hold up.
sure.
Like, because there's to some degree where that doesn't necessarily think the magic is real. Like when we have a
And what? The
mechanistic,
asking?
oh no, the other way, where we have a mechanistic, like, do this to get this, right? If you want,
Well, I don't know. I don't know because
yeah. See, here we go. This is
Fred
good.
put the root in his pocket and didn't believe, didn't think that the magic was real, and then got his ass free.
See, to me, that's different though, because that is show he's being told by somebody who works with the spirit
Hmm.
that this will do it. It's not, it has an effect, but it's not a exactly one to one. There's a relationship that's, he's like, carry this in your pocket, right?
Hmm.
Get to know this, you know. And maybe I'm drawing a distinction here, but I wonder about things where we're just mechanistically taking in something we've heard. We haven't like you have some herbalism training, right? Like
Sure.
that's your thing. The idea of like using a sort of dosing method based on a sort of
Mm-hmm.
scientific, like this body type equals this dose. This guy has
Sure.
a cough, give him this plant, is different than like sitting with the plant and being like, what do you think?
Right, right, right. Totally. And
Yeah.
the real deep herbal healers will definitely always be like ask the plant first
Right.
and go into trance and ceremony and
But there is something
sing a
to
song
there is a there
or
is
learn a
there
song.
is something to the St. Joseph upside down thing. It's not wrong, in the same way. It's just maybe it's a little
Yeah,
more
because it's selling houses, right?
right. Right. It's working.
Yeah.
So there's some tension there between just do it works, you know, and build a
Yeah,
relationship.
and it's a little bit like people the science bros say that magic is just science that we don't understand yet. And I'm like not mad at that, honestly. Like because I think that magic is real. And
Right.
if it's real, then it can take the pressure. And if it can take the
100%.
pressure, then it's going to follow the laws that the universe it's going to be in universe. You know what I mean? Like the
Right.
universe is
Right.
going to it does whatever the universe does. And that is like the giant mystery and all this, right? Like there's all these
Yeah. Yeah.
things that the universe is going to do that you're not going to be able to predict and whatever. But like the universe does the thing. And so if the universe does the thing, then you should be able to take water to 31 degrees and then get ice at a certain point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a funny one, right? Because that mostly works, except when it doesn't. Like,
Sure. Right, right, right. Confounding
yeah. Yeah.
like if the water's moving at 31 degrees or something like this and it's not going to
Right.
freeze, right?
Altitude. Yeah.
Sure.
All this kind of stuff. Yeah. And I think, but yes. So first off, I agree with you that if it's real, it takes the pressure. If it's real, it works by the rules. I think that we sometimes have too narrow an opinion of what the rules are. So wait, say the quote again because I always screw it up in my head. So the magic is science one.
Oh, magic is science that we don't understand yet.
Right. I wonder if it's like magic is like it's like science. The question of asking, the way of knowing that we're talking about might still be okay, but the assumptions underneath it are too narrow, right? Like the world we're building these things out of. It's like we're colorblind and magic is color, right? We have to develop some whatever the rods or cones shit is. I can't remember which one's color. We got to like
Okay.
change up enough to be able to incorporate it into that world. Our worldview's got to get bigger. Um,
Yeah, sure. And
but our
that's
but our way of
this
our
is
way of
Newtonian
verifying
versus
something could
Einsteinian
still be the
physics.
same. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 exactly. The scientific method, and
Right.
because science isn't a thing, right? And once you realize the science is not like something that you can trust, but
Right.
rather is a method that you use to verify information,
Right.
then it works perfectly with magic. That you
Yeah.
just A and B test your fucking sigils or whatever you're doing, you know what I mean? Like, and see which one brings you the result you want, and do more of that one, and you
That's
know.
actually, and that actually was what got me really going with magic in the when I really started practicing on a regular basis, as a conscious adult doing it, because I'd been doing it for a long time, but like I had decided that I wanted to get serious about it, but I was too caught up in the Christianity stuff to really start doing group work, right? So I was just like, well, I'm going to teach myself the Golden Dawn system, and and I would have those experiences that you can have in that system where it's like, oh, I got a cool revelation, but I didn't get the car I wanted, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I had a nice ritual, but rent did not get paid, And
Mm-hmm.
so I started playing with chaos magic stuff and shit just started working. And you're
Mm-hmm.
like, and again,
Mm-hmm.
not every time,
Sure.
like you're like, oh, hmm. And at the time I had no idea about astrology at all. And looking back now on some of those, I was like, oh, that was a real bad election for that thing I was trying to do.
Mhm.
nor did I do any divination about it. I just decided I was going to do this thing and see what happened.
Sure, sure.
Um, but it actually was the repeatability and the it takes the pressureness of it that made me suddenly be like, I need to sound like a crazy person at parties and tell everybody else this is real,
Sure.
because it's real. It's working. Um,
Yeah, 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 exactly. And so me and the science bros secretly agree on this.
yeah,
That they think that they are just like that they are winning that argument with me. And
yeah.
I'm like, yes, you guys, this is my point.
One of the things I think is going to be a big change in the next 100 years, um, that I see from my friends who are scientists, is the idea of single causal links is going to fall out.
I
Like,
would
so
love
a
it
sort
if
of
that happened.
molecule science, right? Like this molecule changed this part of the brain. This is the effect,
Hmm,
one
hmm.
variable. I think in 100 years, where the people are gonna look at that like we were just banging rocks together to make fire.
Sure.
Um, and once you take that out and you realize that, like, oh, every scientific study is all intrinsically relational, then all of a sudden the magic components start to become way more obvious, or way more present in what you're trying to do. You're not
Mm,
trying to exclude for them. And this, like people trying to exclude placebo from drug trials, right?
right.
And that kind of stuff. It's like, well, no, if you can incorporate it and learn with it and realize that's a feature of what's happening, then again, magic becomes more apparent, right? It's already there. It's just more obvious.
Sure. And you get more effective outcomes as well.
Right. Yeah. And weirdly enough, more repeatable, because you're
Hmm.
able to better understand it. Uh, yeah, my ex had a lab advisor who caught a little of the bugs you can get sometimes with science, where you're trying to control every variable.
Hmm.
And she was really like, people wanted people to wear the same lab coat that had been washed in the same way with the same chemicals, with the same, you know what I mean, like at the same
Sure.
time. And it's impossible, like and I was goading her because she was making my ex's life crazy, right? So I was goading her to think.
Right.
It's like, are you considering the astrological timings? And
Sure.
she looked at me like I was the crazy one. And I was like, well, that's easier to track than the cleaning schedule, Like, you sure you don't want to write that up? You sure you don't want to keep track of it? You sure you don't want to be part of that, greater than 700-year data collection project?
Sure.
Um, she did not like that. But it's fair. Do you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
we know, what if magic was real? She probably should have been looking at the astrology,
Yeah, well, if magic is real and you're looking at the astrology, then you realize immediately that you never get the same chart twice.
right?
So you're so so you stop trying to make it exactly the same. If that's what's happening, you're like, oh, this is immediately an impossible task. So maybe we can put our energy into other things.
Other things, and then you can also look at the direction of the flow. Be like,
Sure.
we did elect this study in the worst hour possible, and now everything is falling apart every
Sure.
time I try to do
Sure.
something. You know, um,
It's crazy how well that works. Like when you're in some kind of like professional environment and you choose a really terrible election to launch a new piece of the app or something like this,
yeah,
and then it just flops terribly. Like I've witnessed this happening because I work on this app where we do astrology readings, and but it was started by tech startup guys who
right,
don't believe in astrology. They believe in the market.
right,
They believe that there's a market for selling astrology. They don't believe that astrology is a real thing. And so they continuously just make the worst elections possible and are not trying to hear me be like, "Hey, this is why are you launching a new piece of the app under this on a Mercury station or something like this?"
right.
Seen that happen so many times. at this company, like at this company, I've seen it several times, and it continues to just be like ridiculous. And I stopped after the first one. I was like, okay, never mind. I'm not gonna say anything
Right.
anymore.
Right.
I'm just
Doesn't
gonna
matter.
I'm gonna learn for science. This is for science right now.
Right. I have a controlled experiment that I can sort of look like it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I can just
exactly.
watch it happen.
Yep.
So,
The you know, one of the ways I think people are lucky, right, or appear to be lucky, is that I think they are very attuned to those movements, those patterns, without being aware of them. I've seen a ton of successful companies, some of them employing astrologers to get their elections right, but some of them not, launch things on the exact right moment
yeah.
to take advantage of it. And I'm just like, somebody here is sensitive to this and feels it out. They either or they have an astrologer doing it, but like it was shocking to me
Or
people I
this is
knew who
just the time that this happens. That's always
sure,
what I think of. Like this is the way that time functions. Like
right,
when it's time for the thing to happen, that the thing happens. And if it's not time for that thing to happen, as noted in the timing, then the thing's not going to happen. Or if it is time for the thing to happen, then the thing happens beautifully.
right. And the trick is you being the person who wants to show up in that time. Do you know what I mean? Like if you want to be successful, lucky, or whatever in this particular
Sure.
venue, you're gonna have to get good at doing it in the timing. Like,
Sure.
um, you know, I think about like slipping punches, right? Like you got to get that right. you can't
Sure.
you can't fuck up that timing, or you're gonna eat shit, And
Right.
some people are really really good at it, and I was
Mm-hmm.
not very good at it. Like I got punched in the face a lot.
I think this is funny. We have lots of conversations, and most of them are not recorded. But the last time we recorded a conversation, you talked about getting punched in the face a lot.
I miss it. I miss it. I'm not getting punched enough these days.
Ah, the good old days. The good
I'm
old days
addicted.
getting punched in the kisser.
People, if you haven't had it on a regular basis, it's there's a martial arts guy like Rory Miller who says it's the second most fun thing you can do with someone else's body.
Word up. Yeah, all right. That's what's up. Yeah, I've only punched I've only really connected with one punch that I can think of that I like really meant.
One good
And
punch.
yeah, one good punch, and it felt terrible. I hated it. I
Yeah,
immediately felt awful. I was like, I was completely remorseful. The other guy had it coming, and
yeah.
I was still very sad about it.
I I actually think that's true. And this is a longer rant, but I think that most systems of organized violence are actually there to, by and large, create the psychological effects of being able to do that without remorse.
Oh,
Um,
sure, interesting.
that's at least one of the key functions is to because I think most people um, feel exactly that way. They feel remorseful when they do it. There's always a little bit of like victory feeling, or you know what I mean. Like this can be in there too, but even
Sure.
that starts to feel a little greasy. Like
Yeah,
it's not
yeah, big
it's
time.
not great. I mean, I quit fighting. The like it was this is high school, it was Junior Olympics kind of stuff, like AAU, just like on a Saturday. But I quit it not because I was losing, but because I was winning. I guess like
Mm,
I come home and my dad's like, "How was the tournament?" I was like, "I knocked a dude out. I broke another dude's ribs." And I'm like, some other random 17-year-old on a Saturday. We're not even getting paid.
yeah,
Like what is this for? I could entertain myself in lots of different ways that don't, and I was getting those injuries too. It wasn't
sure.
wasn't, you know. So it's just one of those moments where you're like, why am I doing this with my time? Is this my desire? Right.
Sure. Well,
You know,
so I think about like organized fighting and combat sports, and not even necessarily combat sport like football and shit. Like football
sure.
counts to me
Yeah.
as basically a combat sport.
It
Like
is in fact, I actually find it much more disturbing to watch football than I do boxing. Or not boxing, boxing's real bad, but then like MMA. Football's more disturbing to me. Yeah.
interesting. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's definitely organized warfare.
Yeah.
Um But I think about it a lot, and I think one of the main reasons for it is because it is the desire of, at least, I don't know if it how much desire people who make it to the National Football League have, but I do
Right.
know that 14-year-old boys are pushing each other down.
Yeah.
There's no stopping them. They are pushing each other down all
Yep.
damn time. And if you are running a classroom or some shit, then you're gonna be like, everybody go outside, push
Right.
each other
Stop
down
it.
for a little while,
Stop it in
get
here.
that
Do it
out.
out there. Yeah.
Exactly. I got
Yeah.
furniture in here. Go do that out there.
Right.
Break yourselves and not my furniture.
Right. Come back. You'll learn better. Yeah. I think a lot with stags, deer,
Right.
and very important animal relationship in my life.
Is it your
And
Patronus, perhaps?
I mean, listen, the tattoo speaks. It's like people are like, what, is this a secret? I'm like, not really. No. Like,
Right.
um, but my favorite version of the pushing each other down game that you're talking about is sumo. Is
Yeah.
because I think in terms of both recognizing that necessary instinct in us, teaching a good way to do it so that we don't really damage each other. You know what I mean? Like we show who the big bull is, but we don't like. But it's a skill game. You don't have to hurt people really that much to win the game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's really good. And when you look at like the stag competitions and stuff, they're not trying to kill each other. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
they're trying to wear each other out. They're trying to show how strong they are. And then the female makes them run for days and days and wear them out even more. But the competition is not about permanent damage,
Mm-hmm.
and but it is about making yourself better. It is about building your strength and becoming uh, helpful to the group, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
bonding that way. And some of the best friendships I've ever had have been in my training partners for organized violence, which means we were doing a lot of organized violence to each other on a regular
Sure.
basis, and these are, you love those people very intensely, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I do not think I would have loved them as much if we weren't kicking each other in the face on a regular basis. Like you know, it's important there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but I love sumo also for how sacred they make it. The fact that the Shinto elements were never lost, and yeah, salt's got to throw. You got to slap that belly. You got to throw that salt.
Uh-huh.
Um, some guy in a
Shinto,
really
there's
fancy
there's
outfit's
really
got to
good
yell at
tech
you,
in Shinto.
dude. It's it's hard to even talk about because it's just like so huge. You know what I mean? Like, and
For
I
real.
I don't have any qualification. All I can say is like it's the more you look at it, the more you dig into it, the more you're just like, this is it sounds
It's
it's
legit.
stupid. You're like, this is really deep shit. You know what I mean? You just like stand on the sidelines feel like I can't do this. I don't know Japanese. I'm never gonna get through here, but you guys are on your game, Like
Yeah, they're really on top of it. Really, really on top of it.
I
I
saw
went to
a
Japan.
oh you go.
Oh, okay. I went to Japan when I was like 15. We had a little exchange program, and I
Mm.
went and visited a temple there, and we like did a little we did a whole little like temple visit where they taught we did a cleanse, and then we went in and did a prayer and all this sort of stuff. And I maintain most of like for most of the ceremonies that I perform now, I maintain a lot of those rituals.
They also
If
hit
you've heard
something
me
that's
recite the prayer to the Agathos
yeah,
Daimon, then
yeah.
like you will have noticed that I clap at the beginning and this kind of thing.
The clapping is one of the things I picked up too. Like I think it feels weirdly respectful to
Hmm.
add it in, and like there's stuff in Shinto that I'm clearly not qualified to do. You know what I mean? Like that's not
Sure.
my tradition. But like the clapping, they have a lot of accessible for the public stuff that
Hmm.
like if you're just going to go to temple, this is the stuff you need to be able to do, and it's okay. Everybody does it.
Hmm.
Um, I watched a video of a house cleansing ceremony recently on YouTube where they called the local Shinto priest in, had
Hmm.
him cleanse the house. They were rebuilding it, and
Hmm.
some of the neighbors had been telling them that the house was haunted, and it's a Western couple doing this in Japan. So they were like,
Sure.
"What do we do?" And the neighbors were like, "Call the priest, bring him in."
Yeah.
So they did, and they sort of did whatever he told them to do. I was struck by how much of it would have looked like it was in the PGO, like
Hmm.
cleansing, a recitation of the myth of the god that was being called in to the, or maybe it was just kami spirit, but they said god in the video, but the god that was being called in to cleanse the space. So you had to tell his story, right, for him to
Hmm.
be there.
Hmm. Hmm.
Offerings of rice wine being
Hmm.
made first to the god and then to the priest and then to the people who were there,
Hmm.
including everybody who was going to work on the building. I thought this was a really neat touch that I want. This is something I want to bring in from this. Like
Hmm.
they cleansed the building, but they also made sure the workmen were there for the cleansing,
Hmm.
and
Interesting.
that they got some of the rice wine and
Sure.
and
Sure.
but it was just, and then they closed. You know what I mean? They opened circle, they closed circle. They did like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's almost like magic is real.
Yeah.
What if the magic is real and that's just you know some of the,
Yeah.
and it's going to be regionally specific, but some of this is just going to have to be the way you deal with spirits. Like,
Right, right, right. I feel like what you're getting at there is the spontaneous development of calculus in disparate parts of the world, because
yes,
perhaps calculus
yes,
is just a real thing that can be figured out.
and it is just a spirit, right?
Just.
You're right. Yeah, exactly. Um, one of the things Wyatt was getting obsessed with. He fucking loves the turtle myths. He loves Turtle Island. He loves the idea of the movie Strange World, or spoilers, there's a giant turtle. But he had some in his mythological studies had not um picked out that like India and Buddhism also has like a turtle, it's turtles all the way
Mm,
down, turtle myth, right?
mhm,
And he was like, why do all these places have turtle stories?
mhm.
And I was like, well, you could take the sort of 19th century version where it's like, we came out of Africa and as we went here and we went there, we carried the turtle stories with us and they changed, and which might be true, right?
Sure,
Could just be that there are turtles everywhere. And if you sit with turtle long enough, you're like, that dude's got his house on his back. You know what I mean? Like that's
sure.
in that fashion,
There's
turtle
also something
spirit
about turtles where they find the middle of the road.
always,
They
always.
really find the middle of the road. And like, if you are on this road, that there have been many times when I've been walking and been like, my man, this is the very worst place for you. You are
Right,
the literally the slowest creature that we have stories about. What are you doing right
right.
here in the
What you doing here, buddy?
right in the spot where you are going to die? What is
Yeah,
this? And protesting the whole time I move you. What are you,
yeah. Real
my
pissed.
man? Can you help me help you?
Right,
So anyway, if we're thinking about turtles all the way down, like the idea of like, and here we are, we find ourselves currently in the middle of the road.
right.
I don't know about this image, but I like it.
No, I like it because now you're making me think about the turtle as the matador.
Okay.
So turtle has to tell you a story, right? Turtle's trying to get you to think. Turtle's trying to get you to think about turtle, and it stands right in the middle of the road.
Hmm.
I'm going to get your attention. I'm going to die.
Sure.
I know humans. Some of them are going to eat me, but some of them are going to be like, God damn it, turtle! What are you doing here? This fucking, and we will carry turtles universal, like humans all over the world will pick up a turtle and move it to the side of the road,
Sure.
and usually fussing about it, usually being like, "You're so stupid, turtle." Like we
Right.
have, like, I guarantee you that conversation is happening on multiple continents right now. You know,
Sure. Uh-huh.
so is turtle trying? You know what I mean? Like, is that the flag? Is turtle getting us to move him
Hmm. Hmm.
to show us something, to teach us something? Or is it just Turtle just wants us to move him? He's done walking for the day.
Yeah,
He's like,
sure.
pick me up and move me faster.
Yeah, maybe, maybe. I don't know. What I was thinking was that like the turtle being in the middle of the road is the metaphor that of like the just like the way of life.
Mm.
Like you'll be in the middle of the road and there's danger on the
There's
way
danger all the way. Yeah.
that you can't conceive of,
Nope.
and you're just gonna have to deal with that. You're gonna get hit by that car and you're gonna have to fucking deal.
The hit by the car thing just reminded me that most of the deer deaths, most of the deer hit by car they're younger than 2.
Okay.
The older deer figure it out.
Yeah, they figure out what's going on with this highway thing.
Yeah, they figure out how to handle it.
Hmm.
And you know, what's interesting is deer can't see for shit. Like
Hmm.
they're working in sort of an impressionistic painting of the world.
Okay.
They can smell better than dogs, so they
Hmm.
learn to basically through I don't know deer smell sonar, whatever it is, to figure out between hearing and smell and their very basic eyesight when it's safe to cross a busy road.
Hmm.
But the thing is that a lot of them do figure it out. Like that's why we have so many deer. It's
Sure.
they actually do get it. And
Hmm.
yeah, just thinking about
Not
like
these turtles though. These turtles be grown ass 70-year-old turtle. My man. This is how what is this spot right now? This is the
this is
first
the
time
bus
you've seen a
stop.
road before in
This is
70
the bus
years?
stop, man. This is where yeah, I love how multivalent it is too. You know, that so many different stories there. There's a story of arrogance, right? Like I have all the armor,
Sure.
nothing can kill me, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there's always something. There's always something
Yeah.
that can kill you, you know. Um, or the patience,
Well, they
right?
are
Like
prey animals. I don't know that prey animals are ever really arrogant.
if I wonder.
Okay, now that I've said that, you know what I have been thinking a lot recently about the chase, because I've been running recently, and so I've
Mm,
been putting in like 2 miles a day for a little while, and so I'm out there and I'm like running through the park, and there, and I caught a squirrel recently,
like with your
and
hand.
well, I got close enough to catch it with my hand. I didn't actually do it because I knew that
The
the squirrel was gonna bite me and shit, and I was
I
like,
was gonna say they
I
got
don't
big fucking teeth, man. Like that's
yeah, yeah, yeah. And but I got close enough that I could have touched it, and I I thought for a second about like how I would kill the squirrel with my hands
sure. Yeah.
if I wanted to do that.
Right.
Um, and the only reason I was chasing this squirrel is because it ran in front of me and then ran the other direction. It was
Right.
like, "Don't you want to chase me? I bet you do." And then I fucking won the chase.
Right.
And so I as soon as I said that and squirrels are definitely prey animals, not predators. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I so as soon as I said that there's no arrogance there, like I think there's a certain amount of like
And
I
squirrels
can
for
get away
sure.
from this guy.
Well, and then like again, that's a technique there too, right? If I'm wearing you out more than I'm wearing me out, you know what I mean? Like I'm helping other squirrels, I'm helping myself, I'm helping, I don't need you. In some ways, you chasing me, I know where you are.
Sure.
You're not surprised, you're not ambush surprising me. You know what I mean? Like you're like
I don't think these squirrels are thinking that far ahead.
I think
These
they're
guys are
deep. I think it's
mad fat. Nobody has been hunting squirrels around this area for many squirrel generations. I don't know how long a squirrel generation is, but like it's been some time. You know, these guys do not
squirrels live a
remember
long time, man.
humans as predators.
Yeah. Squirrels live a long fucking time. Yeah. Uh that's another case where like most of them die in the first 2 years, but if you don't, you live to like 15.
Oh, sure, sure.
Yeah. Smart
Yeah,
squirrel.
and squirrels are a long-standing feature of land mammals as well. They're
Yeah, they're really smart and really hard to kill and really like incredible at the whole like falling thing. Like like
real
the
good at
fact that they
that.
can
They're very good at falling. I did the other day though. I was walking this time and a squirrel fell out of the tree. And and I was like, "Did you mean to do that?" Cuz you fell right on your side, dog. That
they
did
do
not look
always
comfortable.
whenever that happens, they do always kind of look at you like, yeah, 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 that's the thing we do.
Right.
Maybe I don't know if you've heard about side landings yet where you live, but it's a
Right.
big thing around here.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I love hip paint. That's my favorite.
Yeah.
Shit. Hip paint goes back in my family generations.
Yeah. I saw a
Anyway,
cat one time just fucking eat it off of a fence. It's one of my favorite memories. Just like a chain link fence. And he was just
sure.
running along the top like he knew what he was doing. And then he just ate it into some bushes and then
Word.
tried to like, bathe himself and pretend like nothing happened. And I'm like, no, I saw you,
Cats are
dude.
very good this way. Cats are really interesting because they care so much about what their eyesight is really good. And
Right.
so they care a lot about how it looks.
They do care a lot about how it looks.
So I sometimes there's a cat cafe close to my house, and so I sometimes go and like after hours and hang out in the window and like just say what's up to the cats. And then there's all this like jockeying for position that has to happen. Like
Mm-hmm.
they some of them want to get close to the window but not so close that they're like encroaching on the other cat's space, so maybe you want to get high up, and then so somebody has the high ground, and then like and everybody is just like always aware of what everyone else is looking at all the time. Super interesting stuff.
Yeah, man.
I like
This is
cats.
I I both like and don't like cats. Like I don't have a problem with cats, but I'm not likely to have a cat unless I
Mm,
have like outdoor space where I can
sure.
just let the cat kind of do its thing, which I understand is probably not morally correct. I understand it kills all the songbirds and everything else, but like I like those little serial killers killing mice. Do you know what I mean? Like I like them doing what
Yeah.
they're supposed to do. I like them
And
more
I'm not
when
the
they're doing
arbiter
that.
of good and evil out here. It's not my job to police somebody else's behavior.
Get smarter, songbirds. You know what I mean? Like, come on.
Low key. I mean,
Cats have been around for a while. Like,
right?
figure it out.
And how long have birds been here? Since they were dinosaurs? Like,
Yeah,
this is the best strategy you have. You haven't encountered predators before? Like,
right.
get out of
Yeah,
here.
yeah. Stop complaining with that.
And look, I like songbirds a lot. Also, like
Sure.
bird songs are one of my favorite things in the world, and I love the sunrise ceremony that they do. And I'll talk. You probably heard me waxing poetic about metaphors around songbirds one day, but like, and
You just
I'm sticking to that. I just
you
also think that cats are gonna do what they're gonna do, and it's not
yeah,
my job to stop them.
yeah. You just you
I
j-
feel weird about spaying and neutering animals, not because it's
mm,
not, like if we're thinking about like management of cities and
right.
populations and this kind of thing, but like if they were people and we were forced sterilizing them, I would feel a way about that.
Yeah,
You
the
know
the
what I mean?
history on that's not great.
It's not
Um,
cute. It's not cute.
no. But I do think that there's a difference with domesticated animals in that we have entered into some kind of a relationship deal with these things to look out for them, right? Like we like
Sure.
we have agreed to properly manage because we don't eat them anymore, right? We're like,
Some folks don't.
well, that's true. I mean, there was I saw a video the other day. It
I've
was like
heard good things
listing.
about dogs. I've heard that dogs are delicious.
I saw a video that was like listing the animals we eat most, like how many billions of animals are eaten in a year.
Sure.
Dogs were surprisingly high on the list. You know what I mean? Like they were
Sure.
much higher than I thought they would be.
Yeah, because they like white people don't eat dogs.
Right,
And
right.
that's where we live at. We live
That's true.
amongst the whites.
Yes,
So if you go to China, it's a different
they
game.
have they have some different feelings. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, white people don't eat
Again,
dogs.
I'm not the arbiter of good and evil over here. I'm
I'm
not
not.
trying to tell
No,
you that you shouldn't be eating dogs.
I'm not either.
Eat
I'm
the
just
dogs up.
saying.
It
I am
came right
saying
up
that
to you. What you supposed to do?
it's funny. You know what I mean? Like it's funny how like you can talk like there's some level where culture will sneak up on you. Do you know what I mean? Where
Sure.
like I am aware that people eat dogs. I even don't have an intellectual problem with people eating dogs. Do you know what I mean? Like that I understand
Uh-huh.
why you would, as you say, comes right up to you. But there's a part of me that's like, no, that's wrong. Do you know what I mean? Like it's funny how that
Yeah.
stuff will like just fucking kick in like
Mhm.
real hard. You're like, no. And yeah. What do you think the number one animal eaten though was?
I don't chicken, cow.
Yeah. It's fucking chicken, which is crazy to me because like, I mean, it's not crazy. They're delicious. I ate
Because they're
chicken
really
tonight.
easy to raise. They're
Really easy to raise, but like in
a bunch
terms
of
of
them.
like
If you're just counting, so it's probably not in weight, right? It's probably like measured by number of
numbers
animals.
numbers of animals eaten.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Because like how many chickens can you raise for the same price that you could raise one cow? You know what I mean?
I was actually just talking to a buddy about this, about uh, the economics and environmental economics of cattle, right?
Yeah,
And that like if you have a
that's
cow,
crazy.
if you have a cow for milk, let's say you have a small farm, that cow makes perfect sense, right?
Sure.
But if you have a cow for beef food production, now it's an issue of a commons almost always in history. Like,
Sure.
we have to agree together how we're going to handle this cow situation, and where we're going to put them. Doesn't mean that's bad. Like cows, prairie animals do a lot for desertification. Like they're important, but it requires a centralized conversation, like to talk about cattle. You know,
Word. Yeah. I really want to talk to you about economics. I have so much to say about all of this, and I would love to hear what you have to say about it. We are past our time here. You and I have proven that we can talk for 3 hours or 4 hours at a stretch. At our last one, we did that. We did 3 hours. It was delightful for the whole 3 hours. But if we're gonna do this regularly, which is the plan now,
which we should.
We're gonna show up here. We need to make it approachable for ourselves. So
I think it's good, and also like that's a good one too, because I'm looking forward to digging into like, so if we look at economics, again, what if magic is real? What do we do with this stuff? So I guess you're right. We'll hold that for next time. We'll talk about the commons and cattle and
yeah, because I have real questions here. I've been thinking deeply with it, and I don't.
I could just hear. I can hear Professor Basu, my economics professor, being like, "This idiot is going to talk about economics in a way that other people are going to like listen to him. Like, what did I do wrong? Why did I did not fail him hard enough? I did not."
I do believe that earlier in the discussion we mentioned how important it is to yell at the dolts in your radio.
That's true.
So that we are now putting the onus onto the listener.
Yeah, come yell at us. Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you definitely don't listen, just listen to what I say. I don't know. I have no credentials at all. I'm just some fucking dude. But if I am some dude who with an opinion, then at least shout me down. At least be like, well, here's why that's bullshit, and why I'm like clearly the better economist at home cooking my chicken.
Yeah, come shove me out of the sumo ring with your mad economics knowledge. That's fine.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, this is a delight. It is my absolute pleasure that we're getting to do this more often, and I hope everybody else enjoys us going off on tangents, because I enjoy us going off on tangents. So
yeah, it's so much fun.
This is my pleasure.
Yeah, totally. And maybe now that they've heard you wax poetic about how cats are killing all those songbirds, they will want to get a geomancy reading at wilkinsbryan.com. I know that's what I was thinking while we were having that conversation.
Yeah, if you're trying to figure out what is the best way to either contain or support cat murder of songbirds, geomancy is the perfect art. It's the perfect fortune-telling art to determine this. So this is what I would do. And I'm gonna do your advertising for you as well, and be like, look, if you are facing a moment of personal revelation in your life, and if you're like, what is the apocalypse that is coming for me, you should go to zambonifunk.com. Wait, is that right? Is that your actual website?
Zambonifunk.com? Yeah.
Yes, I got it. See, I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna get this over.
You know how long it took me to work out this branding? It took me a long ass time. The first band name that I had was Uncle Vernon's Red Mountain Groove Quartet.
It's not a bad name though. The SEO is better on
You're the only person who has ever responded this way.
I like it.
Delicious Brian, the contrarian. Thank you everybody for being here. We will check you out in a few weeks.